So our breathing reflects how we feel. So if a person is feeling very stressed, their breathing tends to be too quick, too shallow. They might even be holding their breath. A lot of people hold their breath when they feel pressure. So that's what's happening to us when we're feeling pressure. And we feel pressure all the time. It's a part of being a human. But over prolonged periods of time, go on, do you want to ask me, jump in there?
I was going to say, is it fair to say that often in those situations, these things are happening, but people are unaware of them?
Yeah.
I mean, you might say to someone, "You're holding your breath," and they go, "I don't," unless. I mean, you're sure. I'm very aware of it. I'm sure you're very aware of it because we've been trained in the awareness is how the importance of the breath. But I think many people, just because they've been, the first thing they did was breathe.
Mm.
I think they get into stressful situations and they might necessarily notice those changes that are clear as day to you.
Yeah, and they might notice them honestly for decades. So
Yes, yeah,
this way
ever.
of breathing or ever, our body, our nervous system is always learning again how to breathe. So every day it's learning to breathe again. So if we are constantly feeling pressure, constantly feeling this kind of difficult situations, we start to breathe like that slowly over time, and that becomes our way of breathing. So a person could be breathing in a really shallow way without even thinking about it or noticing it, as you said, and this has a really detrimental effect on their health. Now, if we take a step back and look at it again, how we breathe is how we feel. So in moments of really kind of calmness in their life, they might be in a difficult situation, they come home, something happens, and they feel that they can unwind and they feel calmer. If they pause there for a second and listen to their breathing, they'd notice that their breathing was soft, gentle, light, even quite soft, as I said.
But sorry to jump in, but you said something earlier. You said about people under stress, their breathing becomes shallow. And yet, I'm sure you've noticed this as well. But sometimes when I'm in a deep meditation, my breath becomes so fine. So, yeah, my breath becomes so shallow. But yet, in a stressful situation, you also. So, I'm wondering, how do you define shallow then? Because in
So
stress, also people can hold onto their breath.
there's often a rapid pace to the breathing in stress. If you listen to someone in stress, it might be shallow. Like when you're in deep meditation, it's nearly like the breathing stops. Like in really deep meditation, it's nearly like it stops. Now, of course, it doesn't.
No.
But in fight or flight, in emergency, it's rapid breathing. The body's breathing quite rapidly in order to give us this sense of stress, to give us
But
this
they're
energy.
small breaths. Yeah.
Like that.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the beauty of it is that we don't have to think about our breathing. It happens all the time. So about 20,000 times a day, our breathing happens automatically. And it becomes fast, it comes slow, it comes deep, all
So
these
20,000 times a day, I'm sure you know the maths. How many breaths is that a minute?
oh,
Or do you know? I
you,
assumed you
I
know the
leave you
number.
to do that calculation.
Yeah, okay.
But whatever that number is, ideally, if we're breathing about 4, 5, 6 breaths a minute, that's where the body is in this coherent state. The majority of
Yeah.
people are breathing in a much faster way. So really, the breathing is like a mirror. If we were to look into that mirror, the breathing would show us how we're feeling, what's going on deep in the body, and that reflects on what's going on in the mind as well. Now, the good news is that we have, with practice, control over how we breathe. So let's say we're in a really difficult situation, we are feeling threatened by something, our breathing is out of control. In that moment, we have a choice. We can decide, if we have the skills, to focus on our breathing, just to even listen to it. And in that focus and listening, the breathing begins to slow down. And then if we have a little bit more experience, we can start to consciously slow the breathing down, focusing on the exhales, for example. And in those moments, then the heart rate starts to slow down. The body starts to move into this part of the nervous system where we feel safe, and then eventually we feel calm. And this is where the massive health benefits are from breathing. Because when we are breathing in a way where we feel safe and calm again, then the body can start to rebuild itself. Then it can start to restore itself. So even if a person is in a highly difficult life, let's say they have a job that puts them under pressure all the time, even if they take 5 or 10 minutes when they get back to where they work or wherever it is, and they just do some breathing for 5 or 10 minutes, that brings them out of emergency back into this place where the nervous system is calm again. And that is essential for our health, because when we're in survival mode, the body is pushing all the resources into dealing with whatever the pressure is. It's not focusing on rebuilding. So we need these moments during our day where we focus on our breathing just a little bit. And that brings us down out of this fight or flight and allows the body then to restore itself. Otherwise, our immunities in fight or flight, it's like our immunity is kind of turned off. I'm sure people have had those situations over maybe a few weeks where things have been hectic and then they get sick at the end of the 2 weeks. So a little bit of breathing is so important by reducing the levels of stress and anxiety, moving us down into the part of the nervous system where we feel safe and we feel calm again. And that enables us to rebuild and to restore ourselves. And then our health improves, then our sleep improves, then our focus improves.
You talked about this 4 to 6 breaths a minute, and I want to talk to you a little bit about coherent breathing, but I just want to catch something else before it slips from my mind. This we call it slow, shallow breathing, whatever you want to call it. This 4, 5, 6 breaths a minute, where we drop in, and if we practice this, calm emerges in our mind and in our body. So, is that then our natural state? And if that is our natural state, where did that change for us? I mean, what was the transition? Why, if that's our natural state, why don't we all just naturally breathe that way? I don't know. Do children breathe that way? Is there a point where we all, do we learn a bad habit somewhere? I know we're unaware of it. So you say you grew up with hippie parents, but maybe your parents weren't aware of this. Mine certainly weren't. So is there a lack of awareness, and is it something natural that at some stage goes off kilter and now we need to take responsibility for it to realign it?
So I think when you talk about the natural state, I think we are built to be in two opposing states at different times.
Yeah.
So there's this great kind of story of the cave, so our ancestors, when they were in the cave, we were safe and our breathing was nice and relaxed and our digestive system was working and we were in this rest and digest phase of the nervous system. That's one state of the humankind. When we leave the cave and we're outside and we're immediately scanning for danger and we're hunting and gathering, or we're being hunted, our other state is this high awareness, high energy survival state. And we're also built to be like that for short bursts of time. So I think we exist in these two polar opposites and a spectrum in between that. I think maybe where we've gone a little bit awry is that people don't have the cave to return to as much anymore. They might be at home where they should be starting to unwind, but every time we pick this little thing up and we scroll, it starts to trigger the fight or flight. So it's just having this balance between high alert and deep rest. So that's one part. So I don't think it's a problem. We definitely shouldn't be absolutely calm all the time. That's not
we need both.
But back to the other part of your question was, did something change along the lines? And I have 4 teenagers now, but I used to watch them when they were babies. And when we're small, we breathe in this beautiful way. It's called natural breathing. The belly expands, draws down the diaphragm. We breathe with our whole body, and the exhale is just the release. And you watch children very young, and they breathe with their whole body like that. And as they reach about 6 or 7, and as they become more aware of themselves and more aware of their surroundings, I'm sure if you have, young people in your life as well, you'll see, and we also experience, you become more aware of what people say about you, what people, the surrounding pressures. The more we start to feel external pressures, the more that changes our breathing. So about 8 or 9 or 10 or 11, as we grow up and we start to become more aware of our surroundings and our place in it, our breathing changes. And if that scenario is quite pushes us into a place where we feel threatened or stressed, our breathing can get a little bit tighter, a little bit higher in the chest, a little bit faster. Now we can come in and out of that, but for some people, that state of breathing quite quickly in a kind of stressed way can stay with them then for the rest of their life. It can stay with them for 20 or 30 years. When I'm teaching people to breathe now, often it's a return to breathing like we did, but there's a reason, like we grow up, we have responsibilities, we have things to solve, we have places to go. So again, we need to exist within these two polar opposites, the action and the relaxation, the survival and then the restoration as well. So there's nothing wrong with these bursts of difficult situations. We just need to learn the skill of being able to come back out of it. We have to come back out of it.
We don't want to stay there. And I think that analogy of leaving the cave explains a lot, because I suppose if we go back thousands of years ago, we left in the hunter-gatherer time, we left the cave to kill for food. And when you're doing something like that, whatever it is you're chasing, you don't want to be in this calm, rested state. You need to your heightened senses, because it's a very dangerous situation. But once you've killed your prey and you bring them back, and now I suppose naturally we would have dropped back into the rested state. Then we had our food, whatever, and we weren't surrounded by email, mobile phones, TVs, tablets, all. So we moved into a stiller environment. So I suppose that makes sense in saying that neither are wrong, but maybe we're overusing them now, because we're in a world of, at that stage, we were in a world of temporary stimulation, and now we're in a world of continuous stimulation. And a guest I interviewed just before you a couple of days ago, Dr. Michael Keane, and he's a neuroscientist, and I can't remember the expression he used, but something to the effect that our minds haven't caught up with the mind we're using and the body we're using. It hasn't, because the world changed so fast. Our minds just haven't caught up with where we are now, because just things have changed so rapidly within such a short period of time. Maybe it's decades, maybe it's 100 years, but from an evolutionary standpoint, that is way too fast for us to adjust to a new environment.
Yeah, like we are built to survive very harsh conditions. And that's what we've done for millions of years to get to this point where you and I can have this chat across the internet like this. So we are sitting in these bodies that are built like that, and these brains that are built like that. And all of a sudden we've had these massive social changes. And it's going to take the human brain and the human body a long time to adjust to that. But I think there is a change also in our perception of this problem. I think people are trying to find a balance now with the level of distraction in their life. I think some people are realizing that they can't continuously live in a constantly distracted world. They need time back in the cave.
One of the things you also mentioned was how this can change for maybe in the teenage years, or maybe it's 8, 9, 10, when we begin to move out of the childhood behavior, and we're moving into our teens towards adulthood, and we become aware of our environment and our breathing changes. So I suppose, as far as I'm aware, you've specifically studied this area of how it impacts in teenagers, and I'd like to hear a little bit about that, because it seems to me that it would be a really impactful intervention to catch children at that age and begin to train them in, I suppose, two things. One is you label what's happening for them, so you identify, so they become aware of the shift that's happening, and you give them a skill, because when you're at that age, you don't know what's changing, and you don't have the skill to do anything about it, but no one around you has that
Yeah.
skill. So you might talk about a little bit what you do there, because I think that could be really important.
Yeah, so we have a breathwork academy called the Blissful Breath Academy, and as part of that, we have worked with quite a few schools, secondary and primary schools, and we actually have a good few teachers who are by profession teachers, breathwork teachers who are also primary school or secondary school teachers. And really, what we're trying to do is we're trying to get into the classrooms and also train the primary and secondary school teachers in these very simple, very effective ways of breathing that, as you say, help people to deal with these massive, massive changes that go on within themselves and around them. And what we've found over the last few years is when we're teaching adults, adults have so many hang-ups about, you know, is it the right thing to do? Am I doing it correctly? Does it work? All
Mm.
these things. What we found with teenagers and children is they just take to it so easily because it just helps them. They feel it helps them. And, so they need less of it. So, what we might say 10 minutes of breathing for an adult, like a minute or two of breathing with children and teenagers changes how they feel so quickly. And some of the schools that we've been in, the teachers have come back to us and said, we do a little bit of breathing at the start of the day, and the difference it makes for the rest of the day is unbelievable. The children are more content, they're calmer, they're able to focus more. And I think there is a change in the schools. Yoga is in schools, mindfulness is in schools. We're getting breath work into schools. And I think a lot of schools are very open to it because, again, I think my job becomes easier when there's a real need for it. And after COVID, many teachers are struggling with the effects of the isolation and things that happen to the children and teenagers. And it's still cropping up years after COVID. So they're looking for ways of dealing with this. And as well, it seems maybe it's not true, but it seems that the pressure on, say, teenagers for exams and things like that is also very high. So again, teachers are looking for simple tools that help them and the teenagers deal with it. So for us now, that's a big focus because, like you said, the future will be very bright when the children and teenagers of Ireland and the rest of the world have these very
Mm.
simple tools that they can use just to help them feel a little better. Because growing up is very difficult at times. And if they have a tool that helps them just come back down to themselves, and it's so empowering for them to think that, okay, this difficult thing is happening. I can focus on my exhale for 3 exhales and I feel better. That's hugely empowering for them because it gives them something in the midst of the pressure to hold on to.
Yeah, it's powerful. Um, I have three sons, that are adults now, and they all went to a rugby school, and one of them loved rugby, and the other two did not. Um, but the interesting thing was that after school every day, there was training was compulsory for an hour. Compulsory. Now you didn't have to. Rugby was what the school was about. But if you didn't do rugby, you could train and you could do something else. But it was compulsory. School finished and it was an hour. And I remember thinking to myself that it's a really powerful thing they're doing, because if you go to school, whatever age they were, and they went to school, I don't know, 12 or 13, it was secondary school, and you're in there until you're 17 years of age, and every day, 5 days a week, you train for an hour, you are creating this habit. And then you're 17, 18, you leave, whatever you do, your likelihood is now, this is what I do. I train, I train consistently. And we know that exercise is the magic pill. It's a massive impact. And so when I was looking at this, I was thinking, like, the skill they're giving to these children going into the rest of life is massive. And I think this is something equally, or sorry, not equally, even more powerful, because if you take kids through their schooling years and you teach them this skill, by the time they get to adults, they won't think about it anymore. They won't. It's just you'll have given them this incredibly powerful skill that that will transform them. I was blessed that when I was 17, 18 years of age, I learned meditation, and it transformed my life without question. It took me into a different path. So I'm not trying to sign everyone up for meditation, but it's similar. If you learn a skill like this, that skill is, I mean, it's enormously powerful.